What's up, tennis fans? Sleepy Pigs here. We just wrapped up the second round at the Rome Masters, so we're going to take a look at our third round picks for the top half of the draw. Let's take a look at the draw. And here's a look at Sinner's quarter of the draw. And guys, no beating around the bush. We had a terrible day with our picks today, and we'll do better in the third round. A lot of upsets here, but again, a lot of matches we talked about that would have been close. We just picked the wrong guy in that scenario, but we will do better going into the third round. First match we're going to look at here is Sinner against Popyrin. Sinner able to get through Offner pretty easily, and 6-3, 6-4. He was able to neutralize the power and aggression of Offner, plus he had him moving a lot. And we talked about how Offner's the type of guy that likes to set up with the ball in front of him and dictate a little bit, not able to do that as much against Sinner, so he struggled a lot there. Popyrin and Menchik, this was a fun match to watch here, a lot of back and forth, and Menchik taking that second set, you really think that he was going to be able to turn it around, but Popyrin was so aggressive, and I was impressed a lot with his speed, his ability to get a lot of those Menchik shots back. And Menchik doesn't hit the ball that big; he likes to redirect. So Popyrin did a great job just taking control of the center of the court and really dictating when it mattered. So a nice win for Alexei Popyrin to come through. He really looked like the Popyrin that we saw back in Houston. I'll be curious to see how he does this next matchup because, of course, he's taking on Jannik Sinner, the #1 player in the world. Head-to-head here is 2-1 for Sinner. Alexei Popyrin winning their sole meeting on the clay, though. Back in 2021, Popyrin was able to win 7-6, 6-2. In 2025, last year, Sinner was able to beat Popyrin 6-3, 6-2, 6-2 in the second round. And then this year in Doha, Sinner is able to win 6-3, 7-5. And the Doha match was pretty competitive, guys. That's what kind of makes me a little bit nervous. However, I would put this as Popyrin's least favorite surface. I think he does play a lot better on the hard court, so that's something to me. I know Sinner is playing such top-notch clay court tennis. We have Jannik Sinner coming in. He's 12-0 on the clay, 11-2 last year, 11-2 the year before. Popyrin, on the other hand, is now 4-3 on the clay, 9-6 last year, 4-8 the year before. Popyrin able to get wins over Berrettini and Menchik. And Sinner's coming off that win in Madrid. Let's keep in mind that he has won both Madrid and Monte Carlo, beat Zverev in the finals of Madrid. Popyrin, on the other hand, coming off a tough straight set loss to Martin Dam in Madrid coming into this tournament. And we definitely got to make a few notes here on Popyrin, especially from that match, that he clearly doesn't like to face the bigger pace, and the altitude of Madrid might have given him a little bit of problems. There's not much more that I want to talk about with this match, guys. I really think it's going to be cut and dry here for Sinner. I can't see Popyrin really challenging Sinner too much here. Sinner's been playing such great tennis. His defense is awesome. He's going to make Popyrin hit one or two extra shots. And what happens when we see Popyrin do that? We see unforced errors. So I think this is going to be a Sinner straight set win. Give me Sinner to advance in two. Next match is Tiafoe against Pellegrino, and Pellegrino able to get through Arthur Fils 4-0 and then a retirement. A little bit disappointing here, but we did talk about, at the beginning of this tournament, guys, in our draw reaction, we talked about how was Arthur Fils going to be able to play. He's really put a lot on his body playing Barcelona and winning that tournament, then getting to the semifinals of Madrid. I mean, he's played a lot of tennis the last couple of weeks, and we talked about how Fils had this pattern of playing maybe 2 tournaments, taking a break. He didn't do that here. He came out, he looked stiff, and in the press conference he noted that he felt a little bit of hip pain. We hope it's not too serious for him because obviously he needs to be ready to go in a couple weeks for the French Open. I think the retirement for him a little bit more precautionary than anything. I'm sure he didn't want to have to fight through a 2 or 3 hour match. to get through there, and I think he's going to have a good week off to kind of refocus and get ready for the French Open. Tiafoe, on the other hand, what an amazing performance from him. Buse winning that first set 7-6. Tiafoe was up 5-2, and he let Buse back in. Buse able to grind a few points out here, rely on some of the Tiafoe misses. And guys, how much did this look like just a regular Frances Tiafoe clay court match where we see him go out to a big lead because he's booming the forehand, he's hitting the serve, but then all of a sudden he starts to get grinded down by some of these clay quarters, and they come in, and it really felt when he lost that first set that this was going to be Buse's match, and it wasn't. Tiafoe was able to just get right back on it, get up a break, fight off a ton of break points against Buse. And the one thing I love, obviously we know Tiafoe's movement has looked amazing. I love the rally ball that he's developed and his ability to change the pace of shot. So he might be hitting the same shot, whether it's like two cross, but then he goes with the big spin or the big heavy top cross, and that really does throw someone like Buse off. Buse likes to play like that rhythmic tennis, back and forth, cross court, and then he gets his shot at the winner. But Tiafoe kept him on edge most of this match, and I just have to say, like, this is such a good mental hurdle for Tiafoe to get over, to beat a player of the caliber of Buse. We know how well he's been doing on the clay. So a great win for Frances Tiafoe, 6-7, 6-3, 6-2. He's going to play Pellegrino. And head-to-head here, these guys have not met. Tiafoe's coming in. He's 3-1 right now on the clay. 11-7 last year, 5-6 the year before. Pellegrino, on the other hand, is 16-10 on the clay this year, 37-18 last year, 24-26 the year before. Pellegrino having to come out of qualifiers, beating Gaston and Landaluce, and then beating Nardi in 3 sets and getting the retirement from Arthur Fils. Pellegrino did play the Cagliari Challenger, where he lost in 3 sets, 7-5 in the third to Burruchaga. And Tiafoe's other clay court tournament was in Houston, where he was able to make it out to the semifinals, losing to Tommy Paul, but beating Hijikata Popyrin on the way there. You know, this is going to be a real test for Frances Tiafoe, especially with like how the clay game is. For me, I gotta say, I think Buse is the harder player to play than Pellegrino. But we know Pellegrino likes the clay. You know, he's going to come out, he's going to try and grind out some of these points against Tiafoe. And I'm curious to see, are we going to get another result like this from Frances Tiafoe? And my answer is yes. I really do think we're going to get another solid clay court appearance. Now remember, Frances Tiafoe hasn't played on the clay since Houston. That was back in the first week of April. He's been training over in the States, getting ready for this for the European swing. Didn't play Monte Carlo, didn't play Madrid. Now comes into Rome, and he's got a good draw to get out to the round of 16 against Jannik Sinner. I don't think he's going to have much of a chance there, but I think this is a solid draw to at least get the confidence boost of making a couple rounds into Rome. Now, also remember, too, that Tommy Paul and Leonard Tien both went back to the States after Madrid to train, and they trained with Frances Tiafoe. So whatever those guys were doing over there, for me, I think seems to be making a difference. I loved what I saw from Tiafoe today. I just thought mentally he seems so much stronger on the clay this year than what I'm used to seeing. So I'm going to go with Tiafoe again here. I think it's going to be straight sets. I think Pellegrino's a little lower of a level than Buse. And I think Tiafoe's going to come in with a pretty solid game plan, and he'll be able to execute that on the clay here. So give me Tiafoe to advance in straights. Next match is Rublev against Davidovich Fokina, and Rublev able to get through Kekmanovic. This was a pretty tricky match for him. 6-4, 6-4. Seems a little routine. He had him at 4-all. Had some chances in that game. Was able to break eventually, but in the middle of that game, Rublev had a little bit of a, I don't know, like a spell where he was yelling at his box. He's getting frustrated. And, guys, we've talked a little bit about this and how Rublev's improved a lot over the last year and a half or so. Just being able to manage his emotions. Because sometimes he would have these dips or things just wouldn't go his way. Maybe he's making a few errors or there's a few net chords. And he just gets so frustrated that he loses, back-to-back games. And all of a sudden he's down a break. But here we saw for a point, maybe two, and then he's right back on and he's able to get the break. And I think that's something that really shows us a lot of promise for Rublev going forward this season. He's playing a much stronger mentally. We'll see how he does against Davidovich Fokina, but I liked a lot of what I saw. He seemed to really like the aggression, too, of Kekmanovic. Kekmanovic just hitting that same flat ball over and over again, and Rublev was just feeding off of that, moving him side to side and doing really what he wanted there. So nice win for Rublev to get through there, 6-4, 6-4. Davidovich Fokina, a win over Christian Garin, and this match was also a very tough match. Garin, a very strong clay quarter. And Garin did have some chances in that first set, but Fokina just, when the points mattered, we saw Fokina really step on it and take some of these opportunities away from Garin, whether it was from the serve or taking the forehand early, taking the backhand early. There were some points where, we know Garin likes to play pretty good defensive tennis, and there are a lot of points where Fokina just didn't allow him to even get settled into a point. The ball was just gone right past him. So really nice win there for Davidovich Fokina, able to get through in that match. And remember, this is only his second win on the clay, too. So we got to keep an eye out for that, how comfortable he's going to be now going up against a player like Rublev. Head-to-head here is 6-1 for Rublev. Very one-sided. Let's go through all the way back to 2024. In 2024, they played in Madrid. It was a 7-6, 6-4 win for Rublev. In September 2024, they played in Beijing. It was a 6-4, 7-5 win for Rublev. Very similar score there. Obviously, Madrid on the clay, Beijing on the outdoor hard. In 2025, they played in Barcelona, and Fokina able to get a 7-5, 6-4 win. And then they had a rematch in Toronto last year, and that was a 6-7, 7-6, 3-0 win for Rublev. So a lot of these matches very, very close. I get it. The head-to-head is 6-1. Fokina's only won, I think it's like 4 sets in this. But still, it feels like it's going to be a tricky match. Rublev's coming in. He's 6-3 on the clay this year, 8-3 last year, 11-6 the year before. Fokina, on the other hand, is 2-1 on the clay this year, 9-6 last year, 2-5 the year before. Obviously, both these guys prefer the hard courts, but Rublev's had some solid wins on the clay, and most recently making out to the Barcelona finals, losing to Arthur Fils in straight sets, but had a chance to serve that set out, wasn't able to do it, and Fils able to win it in a breaker there. Rublev, I think a little bit tired mentally and physically, goes into Madrid, loses to Kopchiva in straight sets, and now he's able to kind of right the ship here, beating Kekmanovic, and I think a win over Fokina would really help his confidence going into the French Open. Davidovich Fokina, on the other hand, has only played 3 matches on the clay, beating Carreno Busta 6-3, 6-3, and we remember Carreno Busta, he had a pretty solid clay season on the challenger level, not so much on the ATP Tour level. He's been a bit of a journeyman as well. And then a 6-3, 6-1 loss to Casper Ruud, and that match really wasn't even close. We saw a lot of errors off the Fokina racket, and I'm kind of curious if we're going to see something similar in this match here. For me, guys, I got to go with Andrei Rublev. I like the way he's playing. He's got the head-to-head, and I haven't seen Fokina step up in a match yet. So that's my big question. Is he going to be able to rise to the occasion and beat Rublev? He's going to have to bring the A game or A minus game to really push Rublev. And we see, even maybe if he brings that A minus game, he might still lose in straights like we saw in all the head-to-heads. I just like the way that Rublev's playing. I think he's playing very aggressive. I think he's playing smart, and he's keeping his emotions in check, which is the most important thing for him. So I'm going to go with Rublev to win here. I think it's going to be three sets, so give me Rublev to advance in 3 tough sets. Our next match is Nakashima against Basilashvili. Nakashima able to get through a nice win against Bautista Agut. Obviously, a little bit of a older Bautista Agut. We remember what he's been able to do on the clay a few years ago, but not so much here. Made a lot of unforced errors. Nakashima just did such a great job pressuring him and really forcing that footwork of Bautista Agut. A lot of balls just like deep that he has to react to, and he committed a lot of errors in the moment there, giving Nakashima the win 6-4, 6-0. And Basilashvili able to get a nice win over Ben Shelton. And this was a fun match. Obviously, every match that Ben Shelton's a part of is a fun match. He plays so aggressive and so entertaining. And when he took that second set, it really felt like he was going to be able to kind of wrestle this match away from Basilashvili, but not so. And I really liked the fact that Basilashvili just able to neutralize a lot of the power coming off the Shelton racket. And this really surprises me here. Obviously Shelton able to win over Munich, beating Cobolli. The courts there maybe a little bit faster, but it was rainy that week, so maybe not as fast as they might play here. Very similar probably to the way they play here, but it felt like Shelton was just not able to really hit through the court the way he was over Munich. Now we got to credit Basilashvili. He played some good offensive tennis against Shelton. A lot of passing shots on him, and just being able to kind of create a little bit of discomfort. And that's one of the biggest things. And he's going to do the same thing here in Nakashima, I think, where you just, against these American players, you just have to make them feel uncomfortable on the clay. They haven't grown up playing on this surface. At least the majority of them have not. So a lot of times they're used to using the serve +1, the return +1, but here on the clay, you're going to have to grind out some longer points. And we saw today Ben trying to finish the point maybe a little bit too soon. A couple of serve and volleys, some that worked, some that didn't. But overall, I still think it's been a pretty good season for Shelton going into the French Open. I think he should still have a lot of confidence. Looking at this head-to-head here, it is 1-0 for Basilashvili. And he got a win in 2025 last year in a challenger over Nakashima, 6-2, 6-7, 6-3 in the quarterfinals. Basilashvili is coming in. He's 9-5 on the clay, 9-10 last year, 27-15 the year before. He's come through qualifying, beating Moeller, Hijikata, Merida, and Shelton now. And very impressive wins. Moeller, we remember, was able to get out of qualifiers in Madrid. And then Merida making a decent run in Madrid as well, making the Bucharest final. So he's been playing some solid tennis. And Shelton, of course, winning Munich. And Basilashvili has been able to beat all of them. Nakashima, on the other hand, is 3-3 on the clay, 6-8 last year, 13-7 the year before. He's coming off a 3-set loss to Alexander Blocks in Madrid, and we remember what Blocks was able to do in Madrid, making the semifinals, really forcing the issue there, and really putting his name out there for the tour to notice. I'm leaning towards Basilashvili. The one thing that worries me the most is the 7 hours and 45 minutes that he has spent on court. He's 34 years old, so the body's obviously going to take a little bit longer to recover. And we know Nakashima's going to be coming after that second serve. He's going to be putting a lot of pressure with his returns. on Basilashvili. So we have to see, how is he going to handle this type of pressure from Brandon Nakashima? Are his feet going to be ready to go? The way that we saw Bautista Agut, he was not ready to go. Or is he going to give up a lot of free points here? I just think if he's able to play the way he played against Ben, he's going to challenge the movement of Nakashima. He's going to force a few longer rallies. And that's something that we've seen Brandon Nakashima struggle with a little bit. Look at that match against Alexander Blocks. Arthur Fils able to use his forehand and dictate a little bit more. And Burachaga able to just block every ball back, all the offense, and force Nakashima to play some of these longer points and expose that movement. I'm gonna go with Basilashvili here. I feel like this is gonna be a tough pick here, but I don't know if I trust Nakashima just yet on the clay. So give me Basilashvili in 3 sets. And here's a look at Sinner's quarter with my round of 16 picks. I really feel like the draw opened up for him with the previous round, and now I think it's going to be Sinner to advance to at the very least to the semifinals. I think he's probably going to win this tournament, and I believe they said that no Italian has won it in 50 years, so that's kind of crazy. I think Sinner's going to be able to break that trend. He's probably going to win Rome, but he's definitely getting out of this quarter here. And don't really see anybody really challenging him. I thought maybe if Shelton could get his game going with that serve, maybe he would be able to hold, get to a breaker, push Sinner a little bit. Same thing with Fils, seeing Sinner again, but Fils has to withdraw. I don't see Tiafoe providing much resistance, nor Rublev or Basilashvili. I think Basilashvili, if he's able to get out from Nakashima and then maybe beat Rublev, get to Sinner, he's going to be on one leg. He'll be going on about like 10 hours on court. So Sinner's going to advance out of the out to the semifinals here. Let's take a look at the next part of the draw. And here's a look at Felix Auger-Aliassime's quarter of the draw. First match we're going to talk about is Navone against Medjedovic. I mean, you look at this left side of the quarter, it is wide open now. Navone getting through Auger-Aliassime, and this match was just a tough physical battle. Navone being able to survive through it. And, our questions here behind this match were, was Felix going to be able to kind of hit through Navone, able to come into net, take time away? That was something we'd seen him do previously on the clay. Obviously, we know Navone is a very strong clay court player, able to win Bucharest this year. So he's got a 250 under his belt. And coming out here, definitely a lot of confidence playing on the clay. And he was able to grind out a very tough first set. And the same thing in the second. In the breaker, we got some cramps from Felix. And very strangely enough, a time violation called. Felix clearly cramping on the line, getting up to serve, and then the ref calls a time violation as he's trying to kind of stretch his leg out there. Very, very interesting. And guys, I'm not familiar with all the refs, but was that not the same ref that we had? I can't remember what the match was. I feel like it was in Acapulco. But was that not the same ref that also called the time? Maybe it was against Tiafoe. Was that not the same ref that called the time violation there? So maybe this ref is kind of like a big, proponent of the time violation, making sure that these players adhere to it. But in my opinion, I don't know. You're in the heat of the moment. It's 5-all or it's 5-4. Give him a few extra seconds, that that's so tough. The guy's cramping on the line there, and you call the time violation. So Navone's able to get through 7-6, 7-6. He outlasts Felix physically in that match. Medjedovic with a strong win against Fonseca, and Medjedovic, he looked good from the middle of the second set onwards. He really did look like the better player. The first set, you could tell the crowd was really getting on to Medjedovic. He was bothered by it. They were so loud. Every point they were loud in the middle of the points as the guys were hitting. You could tell he was very bothered by that. But he was able to settle down, get a break, and win that second set 6-3, goes up a break in the third set, and at 5-4, that was kind of where all hell broke loose. Fonseca able to break back. The crowd gets into it, and they are absolutely roaring, cheering for their guy Fonseca. But unfortunately, he's not able to get it done. Puts in a very poor breaker. Medjedovic, obviously, a couple of really strong shots in the breaker, but also a few unnecessary errors from Fonseca to lose that breaker 7-1. And Medjedovic advances. Obviously, a nice confidence boost for him. We remember him from back in Barcelona, where he was able to make the semifinals, winning the first set over Rublev, and a close second set. It was 6-2, but Medjedovic had chances in that second set too, and just kind of ran out of steam there. But when he gets going, that forehand is extremely lethal. Both these guys, both Fonseca and Medjedovic, just blasting shots back and forth. An extremely fun match to watch here. Looking at this head-to-head for Navone and Medjedovic, it is 1-0 for Medjedovic. They met earlier this year in Melbourne in the Australian Open. It was a win for Medjedovic, 6-2, 6-7, 6-4, 6-2. This is really interesting here. We have Medjedovic. He's coming in. He's 12-2 on the clay, 6-5 last year, 15-8 the year before. Navone, on the other hand, 10-6 on the clay this year, 30-16 last year, 27-14 the year before. Navone able to beat Shapovalov and Felix in straight sets. Medjedovic, a win over Royer in straights, and then beating Fonseca in 3 sets. Medjedovic hasn't played since Barcelona, so he skipped Munich, was able to make it out to the semifinals, and sometimes I think that might be smart. You got to let the body rest. If the body's telling you that it needs a week off, then you got to give it a week off, and Medjedovic taking that week, and now he's ready to go for Rome. Navone, on the other hand, played the Cagliari Challenger last week, losing to Berrettini in straight sets. He also played a tough 3-setter in Madrid against Zverev. This is going to be a really tough match. I think this might be a 3-setter here. I'm inclined to pick Medjedovic. I like the guy that plays the offense a little bit better. And, I kind of said that last match with Felix against Navone, and Navone's still able to win that match. I think we're going to see a very similar score, whether it's a tough 2-setter or a 3-setter. But I think Medjedovic is going to prevail here. I like the way he's playing. He can take the racket out of anybody's hands, and he can hit through any court with that forehand. So give me Medjedovic to advance in 3 sets. Next match is Bellucci against Landaluce, and Bellucci able to get through Etcheverry. This was a surprise to me. 5-7, 6-2, 6-3. He hit phenomenally. I mean, being able to take advantage of the Etcheverry second serve. How many winners do we see him rope past Etcheverry on that second serve? He was just connecting so well with the ball, and I felt like the crowd really helped him, especially just like pumping him with adrenaline. He was getting pumped every shot. It felt like he was putting a little bit of extra power into every shot there to win this match. And once he dropped the first set, he really refocused and was able to get going in the next 2 sets. Just a very strong performance from Bellucci, especially for a guy that hasn't been playing great on the clay, at least not notably great. He's 7-5 right now, but a good win nonetheless in 3. He's going to take on Landaluce, who was able to get through Marin Cilic. Now remember, this was, I believe it was either Rinderknecht's or Vachereau's part of the draw, and a withdrawal, allowing Landaluce to come in and take a lucky loser spot. Very interesting here. Landaluce lost in qualifiers to Pellegrino. Gets the last-minute call to come in and is able to beat Marin Cilic, who already had a match under his belt. Landaluce able to win 6-4, 6-4. And again, I was impressed with the movement of Landaluce. I thought he defended really well, and we talked about, with Cilic on the clay, if you can neutralize the serve +1 of Cilic and the return +1 of Cilic, then you really stand a chance. And what we saw here was Cilic just overhitting a little bit on the shots, trying to get things past Landaluce. These courts are moving a little bit slower than I think these players are used to. So Cilic trying to overhit a little bit more, and Landaluce able to get the errors, but also has that power behind him as well on both sides of the ground strokes. So great match for Landaluce and great opportunity for both of these guys coming out here. A 6-4, 6-4 win for Landaluce. Head-to-head here for Landaluce and Bellucci is 3-0 for Landaluce. And guys, coming into this, I'm looking at this for the first time. I really want to pick Bellucci. Home advantage on the clay. I don't think Landaluce is playing that great on the clay, but now I see a 3-0, and I'm like, oh, gosh, you got to be kidding me. Let's go through those three matches. A Challenger Hardcourt Final in 2024, 6-4, 6-4 win for Landaluce. A Challenger Hardcourt First Round in December of 2024, 6-3, 6-2 for Landaluce. And then in Birmingham in 2025, a 3-set win for Landaluce, 4-6, 6-4, 7-6. And in my opinion, I feel like Landaluce is playing better tennis than he was in 2025. So this will be a very interesting match here. We have Bellucci coming in. He's 7-5 on the clay, 3-7 last year, 5-2 the year before. So we've seen a lot of improvement here from Bellucci on the clay, going from 3 wins to 7 wins this year. And some of those have been in challengers, right? He's been able to go to the Monza Challenger, beating Lajovic, Guerreri, Travaglia, lost to Prismic. We know what Prismic is doing. Then loses to Forchek in another challenger. Loses in the first round to Jumer in Madrid. Plays the Cagliari Challenger, beats Sanago, who's coming back from injuries, okay. And then loses to Cadenasso in straights. Now has been able to come to Rome and beating Burchaga, who was able to make it out to the Houston final, and Echeverry, who won in Rio. So we're talking about two very solid clay quarters, and Bellucci's been able to dispatch both of them. Now he takes on Landaluce, and Landaluce 6-5 on the clay, 6-10 last year, 13-11 the year before. So he's going to try to beat his record from last year. Only 6 wins last year. He's going to try to beat that in this match here. You look at the recent matches of Landaluce. He also played the Monza Challenger, beating Cecchinato, Gaston, losing to Collignon 6-1, 6-4, and in the semifinals. And Collignon, I believe, is injured here for this season, unfortunately. Landaluce then goes to Barcelona, and he has I think it was maybe a 5-2 or a 4-1 lead against Lorenzo Musetti, loses that match 7-5, 6-2, but pushed Musetti at least for a set there. Then has a disappointing loss to Adam Walton, 6-2, 6-3, goes to the Provence Challenger, beats Jade from France. I've never heard that name before, Daniel Jade, and he beats him in 3 sets, and then loses to Ethan Quinn in 3. In the qualifiers, he beats O'Connell in straights, loses to Pellegrino in 3, and now has a win over Marin Cilic. Guys, I'm going with Bellucci. I just don't see enough from Landaluce to tell me that he's going to be able to step up against the crowd, against a red hot Bellucci. I don't see it. I really don't. I gotta go Bellucci. I know the head-to-head is 3-0 for Landaluce, but I think Bellucci's going to get this one here. He's going to ride the crowd into the round of 16. So give me Bellucci to advance in 3 sets. Next match, we have Cobolli against Tirante. And guys, what a master class from Cobolli here. I mean, a lot of tough games against Terence Ottman. He faced tons of break points, but he was able to save them and win that first set. And for me, especially in that tiebreak, that was all Cobolli. I felt like maybe Ottman hit a couple errors, but the majority of it was just Cobolli just lighting up that match with his forehand. And the one point that Ottman got was a miss by Cobolli that was on the forehand. Cobolli had a clean shot and goes for, he wants to hit it Mach 50 and misses it. But other than that, I mean, the entire tiebreak was all Cobolli. So really impressive stuff from him there, and you could tell the wind in the Atman sails really just like came out. He just was demoralized, I think, from losing that set, having so many chances to win that set, to break Cobolli and have some opportunities, but he's not able to do that. We see him, I think it was on the changeover at 5-1. He just throws his racket to his bag, like, I don't know what I can do against this guy. When he's playing like this. And that's exactly what a lot of players have felt going up against Cobolli this clay season. When he's just striking that forehand, it is so impressive. Cobolli gets an early break, and that basically was all she wrote in that match. He holds all the way through to get a 6-3 win over Terence Atman. I'm curious to see, if they face again in the French Open. That would be really interesting, because you have the flip of Cobolli today had the crowd on his side against Atman. Atman at the French is going to have the crowd on his side against Cobolli. That might make a little bit of a difference there for him. So we'll have to see if that happens again. We'll talk about that rematch. Tirante able to get through Cam Norrie, and I only saw a little bit of the highlights of this match. Loved the way Tirante was hitting on the clay. We know he's a very dangerous player. Remember, we talked about the revenge factor here too against Norrie. Norrie just beat him the week before in straight sets. Now Tirante turns it around and wins in straight sets. How many times do we see this, guys, where it's a straight set win for one player and then it's a reverse straight set win for the opponent? Very interesting stuff always on the ATP Tour. So Tirante is able to advance 6-3, 7-5 over Cam Norrie. Looking at this head-to-head, it is 2-1 for Cobolli. Dating back to 2021, Cobolli got his first win over Tirante in a challenger 6-1, 1-6, 7-5 in the semifinals. Then they faced again in the Milan Challenger. Cobolli able to win in 2023, 6-4, 3-6, 6-3 in the quarterfinals. And then they played last year in Miami. Tirante able to come out as a qualifier and beat Cobolli 6-1, 3-6, 6-3 on the hard courts, which is a little bit interesting considering that we do feel like Tirante favors the clay courts. Last year in particular, 35 wins on the clay, only 14 wins on the hard courts. One of those 14 wins was a win over Flavio Cobolli. And Cobolli honestly not even having a great hard court season last year. He was 9-13, only 9 wins on the hard court last year. He's matched that this year with 9 wins on the hard court in 2026. A lot of those coming in Acapulco, the title he was able to win. But let's talk about their clay records here. We got Cobolli coming in. He's 9-3 on the clay, 15-6, 10-9 the year before. Tirante, on the other hand, 10-4 this year, 35-22 last year, 26-22 the year before. And as we mentioned, you can hear those numbers. Tirante loves to play on the clay. Tirante able to get through Cadenasso in 3 sets and Cam Norrie in straights. He did have a loss to Norrie in Madrid, but before that he was able to beat Bautista Agut and Tommy Paul, both in straight sets. Cobolli, on the other hand, lost to Zverev in Madrid. Remember, that was a revenge match where he was able to beat Zverev in Munich. Facing him again, only winning 5 games this time. Impressive showing from Zverev. Cobolli able to beat Carabelli, Vallejo, and Medvedev to get to the quarterfinals in Madrid. And Cobolli's been playing some really solid clay court tennis since Munich, making it to the finals, losing to Ben Shelton, quarterfinals in Madrid. Now he's playing in Rome. And as one of our commenters mentioned, this is his home tournament. So it means a little bit more to him. Obviously me picking Terence Atman, I thought he had the firepower to kind of match up with Cobolli well, but Cobolli was just too strong on the day. This is a tough match here, guys. I feel like Tirante can really bother Cobolli. I think this might be a 3-setter here. We have seen Tirante lose some questionable matches. A 6-1, 6-1 loss to Burachaga in Houston, but that was after he got a 3-set win over Ben Shelton. He did play over on the South American clay court swing, and let me just see if I can pull that up here so we can see. He was able to make it out to the quarterfinals where he lost to Tabilo in Rio, and then he lost in the Chile Open, again a 3-setter to Tabilo in the Santiago Open. I'm taking Cobolli here, guys. He's had too good of a season for me to doubt that he's going to win this match. The only thing that I see is maybe if that body, he's played a lot of tennis, so maybe if that body just really does bother him, gets a little bit fatigued, the way we saw Arthur Fils start to have a little bit of issues there, might happen with Cobolli, but for what we saw today against Atman, I thought he looked phenomenal, so I got to go with Cobolli again. I'm going to say Cobolli in 3 sets. Final match here is Moutet against Medvedev, and Medvedev able to get a walkover against Mahatch. Again, guys, we know Mahatch gives a lot of these walkovers, very prone to injury. So unfortunately, we have a very similar situation here where he has given Medvedev a walkover. Now Medvedev is going to play Ruiz, and what an amazing win for him. This guy just continues to play unbelievable tennis. This match against Moutet was phenomenal. I mean, just some high caliber clay court tennis. This Llamas Ruiz is now going on 7.5 hours on court. And I told you guys last round when he beat Ethan Quinn in 3 sets, fighting to wrestle that match away from him, I said, I don't know how this guy is going to play another tough match, and he did it again, especially against a guy like Moutet, who brings out the drop shots, who comes to net, who forces you to bend your knees with that slice. And Llamas Ruiz able to produce some high-quality tennis. Now he's facing one of the best in the world, maybe not the best in the world on the clay, but one of the best players in the world in Daniil Medvedev. We have Medvedev coming in. He's 2-2 on the clay, 6-4 last year, 11-5 the year before. Llamas Ruiz, he's coming in 17-4 on the clay, 23-13 last year, 10-8 the year before. Llamas Ruiz has played all 3 setters. A 3-set win over Roca, a 3-set win over Feria, a 3-set win over Quinn, and a 3-set win over Moutet. He wasn't able to get out of the Madrid qualifiers, previously losing to Moeller, who was able to get out and play Sinner after a couple of rounds. Medvedev, on the other hand, able to make it out to the 4th round of Madrid, losing in a 3-setter to Cobolli. No head-to-head for these guys. This will be their first meeting here. This is a really tough one here, guys, just because, Medvedev's not the greatest on clay. Honestly, if Llamas Ruiz was able to go up against somebody like Cobolli, I would say I would go Cobolli all day. The reason I'm hesitant here is because I know Llamas Ruiz is going to give 120% out there. And sometimes we see Medvedev who just is so frustrated with the clay. He's like, I don't even want to be out here. So I'm taking Medvedev to advance. It wouldn't surprise me if Llamas Ruiz was able to win a set. I don't see how this body is going to continue to keep forcing his way through these 3 setters, especially these emotional 3 setters too. So give me Medvedev to advance in 3. And here's a look at Felix's quarter with our round of 16 picks. Again, another pretty open quarterfinal here, guys. It worries me so much for Cobolli to make a deep run here, because yes, he's going to get a week off, but it does worry me if the body's going to be ready to go for 3 out of 5 sets at the French Open in a few weeks. But I like him to advance here out to the semifinals, where he would face Sinner. If Medvedev gets through, if Llamas Ruiz gets through, it's going to be Cobolli into the quarterfinal at the very least. Then we have Medjedovic and Bellucci. I think that's probably going to be Medjedovic there. And then I got to take Cobolli to advance to the semifinals. A great opportunity, though, on the left side for a potential big quarterfinal for any of those guys. Would love to see Medjedovic kind of make it out here to a quarterfinal, get some points, be able to get himself into some of these bigger tournaments a little bit easier. Let me know what you guys think. Post your picks in the comments. Here's a look at our second round records. Not a great second round for me. 14 and 15. Hopefully we're going to bounce back there. Pamplemousse 17 and 11. Still a pretty decent round for the Pamplemousse. Didn't have a great day today as well. A lot of upsets, guys, but at the same time, we got to be ready to call some of those upsets. I feel like I was picking too many safe picks, so maybe let's take a few more risks on some of those upsets. Hopefully we have a better third round. And as always, guys, thanks again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. We have another video out on the French Open previewing the tournament in Roland Garros, so definitely check that out to keep up on everything tennis. We will have videos out every single day recapping the round that occurred and looking at some picks for the next few days. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next video.